Welcome to Black Hat 2026. I'm Adrian Sanabria, and joining me today is Chris Wallis, founder and CEO at Intruder. Hey, nice to join you here again.
Good to see you again, Adrian.
Yeah. Enjoy our conversations, and today we're talking about AI-enabled pen testing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you just released a product. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, exactly. So we've just added AI penetration testing to the Intruder platform. So obviously, we come from the background of being an exposure management platform, looking for the weaknesses that hackers could exploit across cloud, external attack surface, applications and everything. And AI pen testing was a really natural evolution of the product,
Right.
And a really exciting part of the market to be in right now. I think what AI is enabling is really incredible. Like the quality and the value you can get out of a really fast penetration test is really changing the game. So yeah, really exciting product release for us.
So I gave a talk at RSA back in 2018 that was really focused around, like, there's a lot of wasted time in pen testing, a lot of stuff that should be automated. There's actually very little pen testing in a traditional pen test. Like, a huge chunk of what you're paying for is somebody to run a scan and wait on it, and then a huge chunk of what you're paying for is somebody to sit down and write a report in Microsoft Word and then export that to a PDF.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? And then there's this little bit in the middle, like one of the slides I had kind of represented the time used, like what you're actually paying for.
Yeah.
There's this little sliver in the middle where they're actually pen testing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, a lot of it's just gathering all that information. But before we dive deeper, something I want to clarify, and you already touched on it a little bit, is for that talk, I did a survey and I found when I say penetration test, the vast majority of people think of a web application assessment, what I would call a web application assessment.
Yeah.
Something very focused on a single web application. Whereas, like, when I said penetration test, when somebody says that to me, I think social engineering, external, internal, maybe physical.
Right.
Like, I think of the full gamut of services that you can perform in the big picture, right,
Yeah.
of the whole organization. We're going to do OSINT first, right, and very broad scope.
Yeah.
So this tool you've built, like, what is the scope of what it can
I'm glad you
assess?
asked, actually, because
Yeah.
sometimes I forget as well. You just assume, don't you, what it means. So we've released penetration testing for web applications. That's where we're focusing first. All of that other stuff you mentioned, I think AI has equal application there, and I think it's a really exciting path for us to go into in future. But the first version of the penetration testing product is going to be for web applications. So that's where we started, yeah. And it's super powerful there. And what you mentioned about speed and what human can do and what the AI can do, the results we've seen in just a few hours from a AI pen test is weeks of work from a human. Like, it's literally churning out 65 critical vulnerabilities across 4 code bases in 4 hours, and it would have taken a human weeks to do the same thing. And it's really focused on some really critical stuff, which is incredible. So yeah, we're seeing some really amazing stuff from it. Does it fully replace a human? There's still a question mark on that. I think there's areas where humans are better, or they can be more follow a methodology, which the AI struggles with. But the AI is incredibly good at just zooming straight in and finding some really niche critical things that human might miss. And we've got cases where it found stuff that humans have missed for years and years, and the AI's just gone in and found something amazing in minutes. So yeah, it's really incredible.
Like, I think it's difficult to compare what you're doing with this tool to what a human would do, because we always have to prioritize. Like, any pen test I've ever done is time bound, is limited by how much money you want to spend for it and how much of my time that money buys you. Right? And even internally, say I'm an internal pen tester somewhere, I'm still time bound, right? Like, as a human, I only have so many waking hours. I only have so many hours where I'm actually productive and focused. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize in a 40-hour work week, you're not productive and focused for all 40 of those hours, right?
Yeah.
Like, and especially going through pen testing results, like, you can only work on that so long before your brain is just fried. You're going to start missing things.
So true, yeah.
And you're going to stop and you're going to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I like the idea that, okay, now we can cover all of it. We can test everything.
Yeah.
As long as, is pricing still a concern? Right, we've seen these issues with token burn. Like, do we need the largest model?
Not for everything, yeah.
Right.
So
So also let's talk about the harness, because I think a lot of like getting away with using a cheaper model is having a really good harness, right?
Yeah, definitely. So just to touch on what you just said there as well, like humans will also focus their time in ways that they assume they're going to get the most value as well. So yeah, they can follow a methodology, and testers do, but they'll often skip parts of an application that they think is going to be secure. Like if there's an SSO, like single sign-on, they might look at that and think, okay, SSO, that's going to be secure. Like I'm not going to delve into that.
Or it's more likely to, and I have to choose where I spend my time.
Exactly. Right? Am I really going to go looking for a weakness there, or am I better looking for SQL injection somewhere else?
I'm not going to find a weakness in Okta, right?
Exactly, but that's one of the places we have seen that AI pentester really shines, because it looked at the code and said, and it's code assisted, by the way, so that's one of the things that makes it super powerful. It looked at the code and just saw immediately that there was a flaw in the way that one of our customers had integrated with Google single sign-on, and it just wasn't checking, it wasn't authenticating through Google, it was just accepting the email address and then signing you in. And like that kind of thing, I don't know if a human pen tester would have gone to check that, because they might have just seen, okay, Google SSO, I'm sure that's fine, right? And instead it's like completely flawed.
So it literally was not authenticated.
Not authenticated, just logging straight in. And like, fair enough, like someone's made a mistake, and those are the things that creep in sometimes, but would a human have found it? Yeah, we're not sure. So a good one on a good day, sure. But someone who's, like you say, prioritizing their time, and they've got to follow the methodology and do all their steps, maybe not, right? So super interesting. And speaking about the harness, obviously we're working to make it as efficient as possible, so we use the best models we can to do the best work. But when you're writing the report, for example, or when you're challenging some of the assumptions that have been made, you don't always need to use the frontier.
You can use a sonnet, not a fable.
Exactly, yeah.
Not an opus.
So we're using that to then maximize the value, because you're still paying for time, you're paying for tokens. Instead of paying for hours with a human, you're paying for tokens. So we then have to be quite conscious about how we're spending the customer's budget and using, making it as efficient as possible, rather than just burning all on Fable, for example.
So that's interesting. Customer's budget, like, are tools like these that are AI enabled, does the customer bring their own model? Can they use their own Cloud Enterprise plan? Or are you basically letting them pay the token cost and they pay you for the harness, essentially?
It's a really good question. Yeah, not right now. So we're offloading all of that. We're running all the models under the hood.
Okay.
In future, I can totally see a world where people would bring their own. But yeah, for right now, we're outsourcing it for the customer, basically.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like, to optimize this thing. I just went to a small AI summit that they're having over at the Mob Museum. They rented out the Mob Museum for it. And it was interesting hearing some of what they're talking about, because they're talking about, like, you don't just need to think about false positives and true positives, but also false negatives. Like, sometimes if you take the, if you have the model rein things in too much, maybe it doesn't have the freedom, or doesn't feel like it has the freedom to find some things, and you end up with false negatives where it's actually skipping stuff.
Yeah, I think that's one.
So I would worry about that. Like, if the customer brings their own, all of a sudden the quality of the product goes down by no fault of your own, but because the customer has, like, really heavily guardrailed and scoped their own models.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the areas we're seeing. Because these things are non-deterministic, they can be quite difficult to control, essentially. That's why the whole Hugging Face thing happened, right? They go off-piste, and that's one of the things that makes them powerful, right? So it's one of the things that makes them amazing, but it's difficult to get them to follow a script, essentially. So we see better results when we just tell it, go and test this app, basically. Just go and do everything you can to find flaws in this app. If we try and tell it, follow this methodology, it seems to struggle with that, and it just goes off piste. So we're getting much better results at the moment just saying, do your thing. You be you, be an LLM, and do your thing. But with a human, you'd kind of want to see that consistency and that following of the methodology, because you don't want to run a pen test and it comes back with two sets of different results when you run at different times.
Right.
Clients expect consistency, and that's something that I think we need to improve on as we develop this product, because you can't have someone run a pen test and then run another one.
Something and it's that was a true positive is now gone, even though you haven't changed anything?
Exactly. Or like I found something else that I didn't find the first run.
Because that reduces confidence in the tool.
Exactly, yeah. It's like, well, didn't I just have a pen test, and shouldn't you have found that the first time? If a human did that, you wouldn't want to use that same human again. So working on that consistency, I think, is a big part of what we need to improve moving forward. And it's early days in this technology, but that's definitely one of the areas that we need to look at.
So diving again into the harness, I've seen studies that say if it has access to the code, it's something like 10x better at finding vulnerabilities. If it can see the code itself, I assume, because it's a large language model. Code is language. It can spot patterns. This is SQL injection. This is cross-site scripting.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what you're doing, is it a mix of it, the model interacting with the code directly, and how much of it is the model using tools or looking at the output of existing tools that were around before, or the types
like
of
a
tools?
DAS scanner, you mean?
Right, exactly.
It's a really good question. We haven't integrated those yet. I think that's probably the direction we'll be going in, because those traditional tools are still good at some stuff that the AI is less good at, and I think a combination of the two in future is going to be way more powerful.
Yeah.
At the moment, the AI pentest product we have, it starts with the code, it looks at the code, and then it finds all the things it thinks are weaknesses, and then it goes and verifies all those things. So it's heavily code driven, and that's one of the things that makes it super powerful. But I think the more tools we can bring in and merge all of the ways that we can get findings in future is going to be even more powerful.
Yeah, because I imagine then, if it's interacting through a browser, right, with the application, maybe you find some things you wouldn't find if you were just looking at the code. Yeah,
exactly. And you wouldn't necessarily want to do it without the code. I think that's one of the big shifts, and what makes AI incredible is it can just ingest an entire code base and just reason about the whole thing in a way that a human pen tester would never do. Like I've done code-assisted reviews back in the day when I was pen testing, and it's actually overwhelming, right? The client dumps this massive code base on you, and you can't possibly get to grips with it and understand it in the 5-day window that you normally have for a pen test, right? So you're way less likely to be able to consume and use all of that information. Whereas with the AI, it's just sucks it up, reasons about the whole thing, and goes straight to, like you say, pattern matching and finding some amazing weaknesses in a really short space of time. So, I think that's a big shift in how penetration tests are done. It's super powerful.
And the thing I have to ask is, it seems like it's really easy for AI to find software bugs, and I've found it more and more necessary to distinguish between a software bug and a vulnerability. Because to me, it's hard to call something a vulnerability if no attacker would ever be interested in using it. Right? And it seems like, just looking at the numbers, like things coming out of Project Glasswing and Mythos, like a lot of what we're seeing, we're not seeing the number of things on CSAKEV, or things that would be high severity, remote code execution. Like maybe it finds a few of those we see in some of these cases, but then it finds a whole bunch of crashes, of cross-site scripting, of stuff, close won't fix, like that are just lower priority. So how are you thinking about, how do you handle prioritization? If AI is able to find absolutely everything, maybe I don't have the capacity to remediate absolutely everything. So give me something I can handle.
Interestingly, on the capacity side, these things do find a lot of issues. In one of the early customers we had, it found 65 criticals and a whole ton of other stuff. And the client fixed it overnight, literally overnight, 65 criticals done. And I think that's a testament to how fast people are moving now with AI coding. They can just go, bam, fix all this stuff, click a button and it's done. And you wouldn't have seen that 5 years ago, 10 years ago. 65 criticals.
I know some
would have
people
been
that are still staying away from AI for coding. So, is it now necessary? If we're using AI to find things, are we now at a point where we kind of have to use them to fix them?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, I think it's an amazing paradox almost that a lot of people are using AI to create this code in the first place, and then we're using AI to find the flaws in the code that the AI has written. It kind of blows my mind a little bit, right?
That's exactly what OpenAI and Anthropic want, right? Is a world where you got to use our models to find the issues, to fix the issues.
Right.
And by the way, some of those fixes are also going to have vulnerabilities in them. So you need to run this whole thing continuously forever, and just keep that token bonfire burning bright.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, exactly. I come from
that's ideal for them, but hopefully we can reduce the number of vulnerabilities we reintroduce, or maybe AI says it's a fix, but we run it back through and actually know it's not fully fixed. Like that's one of the things I've heard is like if it fixes it based off of an exploit, maybe it only partially fixes it, right? Like the scope of the fix is too small.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I come from an audit background, right? And in that world, what you just described is a conflict of interest, right?
Yeah,
It's just like
yeah.
you're kind of marking your own
Yeah, yeah,
homework.
yeah.
So I think it's good.
I literally know companies that will not use the same model to do the fixes that they use to find the vulnerabilities.
Same. Yeah, I've heard people kind of passing things around. I think that's good for third-party vendors as well. It's like a seal of approval as well to kind of still give us our place in the world. But to your point around it prioritizing things, what we've seen is if you have an app which is super vulnerable and have a ton of critical stuff in it, it will correctly identify all of those things. If there's an app which is more secure, the AI kind of goes into overdrive and it will kind of hype up things which are less important. And it's okay, critical here, critical here. So we have to have like an extra reasoning agent to kind of bat it back down and say, you know, like is an attacker actually going to do that? Is that a serious vulnerability? What's the business risk and stuff? So to try and stop the AI kind of going wild and running a bit rogue. But interestingly, one of the customers we've run through already, it kind of found a postcode lookup. You know these sites where you put your address in, and it pings off to a third-party service. And the AI said, "Oh, that's a weakness because it's blah blah blah. Anyone can do that, and they can do it all the time, and just going to cost them loads of money to look up all these things." And I just thought, that's not an issue. I wouldn't report that. You know, it's not going to cost them anything. It's no big deal. And then we jumped on a call with the client, and they were like, "I'm really glad you raised that. Like that is a problem. We've had that problem before. We have to defend against it." So I was like, the AI is actually a better pentester than I was already. So it's quite an interesting time.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's been great having the conversation. This is, I think, one of the most interesting conversations I'm having at Black Hat, especially having been a pen tester.
Same, yeah.
To learn more about Intruder, you can visit securityweekly.com/IntruderBH. For full Black Hat 2026 coverage from CyberRisk Alliance, you can visit securityweekly.com/Black Hat.